On this special Road Home edition, powered by TSA, the Trucker Service Association, I'm pleased to be rejoined. The first guest that has been able to come back a second time, CEO of American Truck Business Services, or simply known as ATBS, Todd Amen. How you doing?
I'm doing great, John. It's good to talk with you again, and great to be with you.
Yeah, unfortunately, the reason we're on here is due to what's going on with the government stimulus act, the health and safety of all Americans, especially truckers out there, and things are changing daily. So we want to get your input and things that you can share with that small fleet, that independent contractor out there that might be tuned in, that's really worried about maybe what the future holds, especially related to the government, taxes, everything that you touch each and every day there at ATBS. So Todd, why don't we start? I know you've been busy the last 48 hours, but this stimulus package, I mean, I know it's still unfolding. It's like over 1,200 pages written, by legal attorneys in Washington, but what can you really peel the onion back and talk to it, how it's going to impact the American trucker?
John, that's a great question. We are in the middle of pouring through the document ourselves. It's tax season, so our folks are busy doing tax returns, but when something like this happens, you got to set that aside and really figure out what this means to everybody that really cares, because there's something in it for everybody from what I hear. So I guess if we start big picture, the government is going to put $2.5 trillion back into the U.S. economy. So in some sense, that's good for truckers, right? Our economy has really slowed down and almost shut down with this coronavirus, and something's got to get it restarted. So if you start with that fact, it's good news, because freight's certainly going to slow at some point with this virus. But I think that stimulus money will help get things back on track. So then you move to, what does that mean? Where does that stimulus money go? And the things that we can, know kind of right now is fairly simple. There's roughly $1,200 or $2,400 that they say will go to every American, but it's not every American, but it will be a majority of truck drivers. You're going to get a check, just like you did back in the Great Recession. I think George Bush started it. We got checks for like $800. So if I'm a sole proprietor tax filer, I'm going to get a check for about $1,200. If I'm married filing joint, I'm going to get a check for about $2,400. Again, the details are murky on who gets it, how they get it, all those kinds of things. But really what they're saying is, if I'm an individual and I make under $75,000 a year, then I'll probably get that. If I'm married filing joint and I make $150,000, then I'll get that. One of the key elements to make sure we know of is you have to file the tax return. They're going to base that on your 2019 tax return if you filed one, or a 2018 if you haven't filed your 2019. So you got to make sure you got those tax returns in. So that's just kind of the general public, which includes truck drivers. The second thing, when we think about just owner operators or small business, fleets, there's a lot of stuff being talked about from a small business administration perspective, SBA loan. And I've spent the last 2 days trying to learn all I can. And unfortunately, it's not law yet, so the details aren't worked out. But there's potential opportunity in there to get money to offset truck payments, potentially money to offset like 8 weeks worth of lost wages. There's just a whole lot of murky details. So I don't know the facts at the moment, but I think in coming, days and a week, we should have a lot more information on that. And hopefully that's going to be helpful for those owner operators that are struggling out there.
Yeah, Todd, a couple things I've read, and again, this is not law yet, disclaimer, is small businesses that don't lay off employees, they can get loans, and then very low interest rates, potentially capped below 4%, and may not even have to pay some of them back. Again, that would be fantastic for some small businesses that are struggling right now, especially if they're in a freight sector that has really slowed down due to this economic shift. I know I talked to some carriers just today, Todd, that they're up 30 to 40%, but they're hauling refrigerated, grocery-related items, meats, things of that nature. The flip side is, the oil and gas sector has come to almost a halt. So it depends on what freight sector they're in and what they're hauling. There might be a shift as well. And what are you hearing from some of your clients as far as what freight's doing right now? I know you've been on some webinars here the last few days talking about some things you're seeing in the freight market. Why don't we go ahead and address that?
Yeah, you betcha, John. So this week, between the folks that I work with at our company, we've probably talked to 40 or 50 fleets and thousands of drivers. So got a pretty good sentiment, and things are, oh gosh, for lack of a better term, they're on fire right now, which makes sense, right? I mean, America has hoarded things because we're held up at home. So we've stocked up our toilet paper and our groceries and things that we may need for the next 2 weeks to 2 months. And so the truckers are in the middle of restocking those shelves and hauling everything back to the distribution centers. So really, things couldn't be better. It's almost like 2018 all over again right now. You nailed it, the flatbed industry and for sure the oil industry with the plummet in oil prices in the last 2 weeks by, over 30% of the price. That segment is kind of hurting. I hear people that have had their contracts canceled and those kinds of things. So, you got to think a little bit long term. Like if I got a flatbed, do I just want to go jump and start hauling reefer? I got to think out a couple months and through the end of the year. And really what I think is like everything, we're in a time of tumult right now and craziness, and it's going to level off. And ultimately, freight's probably going to slow down in just about every segment because we're in a time of crisis and people stop spending money in time of crisis. So all those goods we're hoarding, we've got enough toilet paper to last us for the foreseeable future. We're not going to be going to the stores as much. We're not going to be eating out as much. We're not going to be buying new cars. So I think truckers need to prepare for a bit of a slowdown. Not terrible. I think the flatbed business is probably going to be the most difficult. So all I can say is run while you can, make the money while you can, while things are good, and don't spend it all. Save as much as you can because tougher days are probably coming through the summer.
And Todd, for those owner operators that will struggle, with the slowdown in the coming weeks and months, what are some other things they could do to help, protect any cash flow, maybe reduce expenses, things that will really help them survive?
Yeah, John, that's a great question. I mean, an owner operator is a person running their own business, so they're completely in charge of their destiny, right? And they spend around $100,000 a year on average in their business. The biggest expense typically is fuel, even though fuel's come down a lot. So on the business side, I would just say brush up, look at everything you got, slow down. There's no reason to really speed right now. Manage your idle time, those kinds of things from a truck perspective. I think more importantly at the moment, not just truckers, but every American, we can just take a look at our whole life and figure out where we're spending money we don't need to. There's a lot of people right now that have got cars parked in the driveway because either they're working at home or drivers are away from home and maybe their wife had a job but they're home right now. Call that insurance company, whether it's State Farm or whoever it is, and see if you can lower that payment to a minimum or even put that insurance on hold for a couple of months. Look at your cell phone bills. If you haven't adjusted those in a while, if you haven't shopped, literally go through every bill that you pay in the home. And my guess is an average person can save $1,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 if they're willing to take the time to negotiate and think about those expenses. This is a time to do that, so you get prepared for the storm that's coming ahead a little bit and kind of get that cash flow down.
Well, Todd, this has been so informative and very timely. We want to come on here and be a resource to the TSA members and truckers in general. So if you're listening to this right now, please subscribe and share it out. It's very timely. We'll put some additional information in the show notes as well. And we're pulling for you. We know the American truckers are what keeps America moving. And I know from both Todd and myself, John Piper, we thank all the truckers out there that are making a difference so much. Todd Amen, ATBS, man, thank you so much for joining here on a special edition of The Road Home.
Yeah, John, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And I echo your sentiments. God bless the drivers out there. Thanks for keeping America moving during this super difficult time.